Yes, I will. Let's start with the easy stuff. Peripherals, excluding the mice and the monitor. Then I'll jump onto the PC, which, as you can see, still has that janky old computer case to hold it together. So, I switched from the last setup. I switched from the AJ's AK33 mechanical keyboard to the Drevo Turfing. And if you want to see a comparison of those two budget mechanical Chinese keyboards, both of which are good by the way, but this one is better in terms of quality and value. If you want to see a comparison, then you can type into the search bar of YouTube AK33 versus Drevo Turfing Solid Lad, and it will come up. The towel below it is because my IKEA table, which is great by the way, is a little bit uneven at the center because I mounted it that way. So I'm putting a towel below the keyboard in order for it not to move around when I press either side of it. So if I place it just here without the towel, you can hear and see how it moves around if I touch certain places on the keyboard, which is really annoying. So I'm just placing a towel below it, and it serves as a wrist rest also, whatever. And I like the brown color. Now that I mentioned the desk, I'm gonna cover it also. It's a desk which you can adjust the height of. It's a standing desk by the way, but I don't use it to stand by the table or by my computer. I just wanted a desk of which's height I can adjust to my liking. It's called the Scarsta. So the Scar... I'm not gonna spell it out, I'm just gonna Google it. So this one. And it's a nice desk. I'm pretty satisfied with it. It's really stable and sturdy and whatnot for the price and for the materials used. It's really nice. All the metal parts, like this one, are really sturdy. My only concern would be this relatively thin wood part, but for its thinness, it's pretty sturdy. Moving on to the mousepad, I have a QCK Heavy here below my Zowie GSR, and I use my GSR like this. The GSR is, by the way, a lot slower. It has a lot more control than the QCK Heavy. And I use my mousepad like this because I like the more thickness, the more comfortable feel below my wrist and hand. But I prefer the more control of the GSR, so I just stack them on top of each other. By the way, I also have a QCK Plus, which I don't use anymore, which is the much thinner version of the QCK Heavy, and also this shitty mousepad that I got for free. Moving on to sound. For sound, I have a more complicated setup than last time, which pretty much applies to everything. I got a K712, which sounds amazing, sounds really great. It's like wall hack in first-person shooters. The directional positional audio in this is great. The sense of immersion is also great, and it sounds a lot better, a lot cleaner than. It's incomparable to the Siberia V2 which I had in the past, but I didn't switch from that to this directly. I had in-betweens. And those in-betweens include this custom HD668B from Superlux, which is a really famous at this point budget audiophile headphone, which I got it for 25 euros, and for that amount of price it blasts everything, blows everything out of the water except for one thing, which I'm gonna cover just in a minute. And by the way, this is my old desk, yeah, maybe you can remember it. Patrick. This doesn't come like this. It uses a hard and then a really shitty pad on both sides by default, and also has two flip-flops here up top, which just fucking push into your head and they make it go like At first, when you receive the headphone, the earbuds on it and the flip-flops here, the Audio-Technica style flip-flops, they are relatively soft leatherette, a little bit on the hard side, but relatively soft leatherette. As you use it and oil gets on the pads and those flip-flops, they harden to the hardness of stone, and then they will really begin to obliterate your head. So I switched this out to I can't recall what are these pads. I think they are, don't quote me on this, but they might be HM5 pads. Fake replacement, rather, HM5 pads. And they're really comfortable. They are incomparable to the original pads. And also, I did this janky looking but a lot more comfortable solution up top. I have a foam in there, and I just put what is this around this medical thingy around it, and it's a lot more comfortable, but it's a little bit too small for my large head, and the size is not adjustable. But the sound quality for that low price is really great. So if all you're looking for is great sound quality, I mean, this has really clear highs and a nice amount of bass, more than what you'd expect from a open headphone. I mean, these are called semi-open, but all these holes here mean that it's basically open, and it leaks sound like an open headphone, and you can hear other people like you can in an open headphone. Yeah, it's a little bit more closed than a completely open headphone, but even though it's called semi-open, it leans a lot more towards open than it does towards closed, in terms of being open or closed. The sound quality, I consider this a good, a really great value entry-level audiophile headphone, because and what makes it entry-level is not the sound quality. The sound quality is on par with like $200 headphones, or Euro headphones, whatever, it doesn't matter, because we get to pay the same amount that Americans get to pay. We here in Europe, even though euros are worth more than dollars considerably when you're buying something that costs 200 of them. So the sound quality is really up there. It's just the build quality and everything surrounding it that makes it entry level. And in between I also had the COS for the Pros, of course, and the KSC75s also from COS, which I wanted to mention just a moment ago when I was talking about the HD668Bs, because these are the other kind of really great value options when you want high quality sound on a budget, because these are below 20 euros or dollars if you get them from a good shop that isn't making you overpay. So yeah, really nice sound from these also. If you really want something for gaming, buy the 668Bs, because directional audio and then the soundstage is a lot better on those as opposed to these. But if you want good sound quality for music on the go, definitely get these. You're not gonna find anything close to these in terms of sound quality in this price range. And powering this headphone and then this headphone, because I only got the amplifier that I'm gonna talk about when I got this headphone as well. So the others I've mentioned and showed you were powered by my motherboard's audio solution. So powering this headphone, and those have also been powered because I've tried them out with this, is a own X1S 10th anniversary edition. And why I got this? Well, you can take a guess why I got this. Zeos Pantera. Yep. He has the regular version without being 10th anniversary. And the difference between them is this has a lot more powerful amplifier section. They have the same DAC section, but this has a lot more powerful amp section. I'm not gonna go into detail as to what an amp and DAC does, because that would take a whole another video, and there's a lot of material on that out there if you want to know more about that. And also audio passes through to my speakers from this one as well. And talking about the speakers, don't worry, I'm gonna get back to the most interesting parts here, the mice and the monitor, for an FPS gamer, of course. But first I'm gonna quickly cover the speakers. They give a nice rich full sound, and they cost me €100 new. They are the Microlab Solo 6Cs. So yeah, these guys. Coming back to this section here, I think I didn't cover the microphone yet, which is for which the idea I got from Podcastage. If it weren't for the YouTube channel named Podcastage and his many great videos, I wouldn't have gotten this. I paid €80 for it, and sound quality wise it's on par with a Blue Yeti, slightly better than a Blue Yeti. And of course this doesn't have more than one capsule, because the main advantage of the Blue Yeti, which most YouTubers use, is that it has two sound capsules, which make it so that you can record binaural recordings, which are good for ASMR videos, for example. You know, the virtual barbershop, that was recorded with a binaural mic, or more microphones than one, I don't know. But they needed more capsules. At least they needed a microphone with two capsules to record all of that. So this microphone is, according to Podcastage, and I trust him because he tried a lot of different mics, the best deal for under $100 USB microphone thingy. And that's saying a lot, because he hates USB microphones, and he didn't hate this microphone, and I can see why, because it produces a great quality sound. I got it in hopes of trying to do vocals. I haven't done any ever since I got it, and I already have it since, I don't know, half a year or more than half a year, but I'll get to it eventually. And this arm is just an arm from AliExpress or eBay, I can't recall. It cost me like €7, and these aren't old chewing gum pieces. These are the kind of equivalent of Blue Tack over here. I used them for something I can't even remember, maybe fiddling around trying to fixate my mouse cord to somewhere, but I stopped using them, so I just put them on here in case I need them again. Well, let's cover the monitor before I go on to the mice. The monitor is the XL2540, about which is OSD. I've just made a video which is right now rendering on my PC, and I'll put these two videos, this setup tour and that OSD kind of tour, and not just the OSD, also the service and the factory menu tour, close to each other. I'll put both of them up probably tomorrow or even today, whatever. In my last setup tour video I had the XL2411Z. Well, since I had that, a lot of monitors have passed through my hands, or this desk rather. Here's a complete list of monitors I've used. So first off, I started off with a really shitty 17-inch LCD, which had a resolution of 1280 by 1024. I mean, it wasn't that shitty. It could run at 75 Hz and it was 17 inches. From that, I've upgraded to a CRT, which could do like 170 Hz at really low resolutions, like 1024 by 768, and the highest refresh rate it could get on a high resolution was like 100 Hz at 1600 by 1200, or 120 Hz at 1280 by 960. So yeah. And then I've upgraded to the monitor that you saw in my last setup tour video, which was quite a while ago. And years passed with that monitor, 2 or 3 years even, and recently, in the last year, I've started trying out 240Hz monitors. I've started with the least expensive one, the Alienware, with this Alienware, and it was a really good monitor. Then I've tried a bigger one, a 27-inch monitor, because I thought that bigger monitor equals easier visibility of faraway targets and easier target acquisition, more easy headshots, basically. And while that is true to some extent, I've, after getting hyped up about 27-inch monitors and playing on them for a couple of months, I realized that it's too much. I can't track targets, I can't flick to targets as confidently on such a big screen as I can on a 24-inch screen. And I realized that after sending back this and this and this. I think I sent back all of these monitors before I got the 2740. No, I sent back even the 27. I don't know. Somewhere along this line, I didn't have any monitor other than this one and this. And the CRT is really heavy, so I didn't bring it into the house. Into the house, and I'm also tired of CRTs. This was a high-end CRT back in the day, and even this one is really lackluster in terms of sharpness. And I want a sharp screen, so I'm sticking to digital LCDs. I'm not gonna use a CRT again, even though this was a high-end CRT. Even this is a lot less sharp than I would like. And it has a lot less brightness also. And the colors are washed out. I mean, people are praising CRTs, and I bought into the hype, and I bought this monitor for, I bought it for €5, so that's not a big deal. But I had to carry it through the whole capital of Slovakia. I mean, half of the capital, to a train station, and I brought it back to where I lived by train, whatever. It was a long and interesting journey, and I learned a lot while using it. But I've also learned that I can't stand the low brightness, washed out colors, and lackluster sharpness of CRTs. So I used this monitor after using the 27-inch monitors, and while using this small 17-inch 75Hz monitor, I realized that I actually played better on it, even though it was a lot lower hertz and a lot smaller than I did on the large ones. And that's when I finally gave in and gave up my huge hype about 27-inch monitors and went back to 24-inch. I mean, 24 and a half, but still a smaller size. So this is where I stand right now. I also had an older generation BenQ monitor, the same generation as the 2411Z was, for really cheap. I got this for 180 euros, and while using this, this was the more premium option back when this monitor also came out. This is like one of the most popular esports monitors still today. But it has really shitty colors. This more premium option, this more premium 27-inch option doesn't have shitty colors, but it has the same clunkier OSD with the clunkier everything, just like this older BenQ does. And it's not as bright, doesn't have as much contrast, doesn't have as good colors as the newer BenQ monitors do, like this and this one. And the black equalizer is also not as powerful. I could go on and on and on. These new BenQ monitors are really a step above the old ones, or even more than one step above. And by the way, these are all the mice I've tried in the past, in more or less chronological order. Here's the G Pro Wireless G305. I'm gonna get on to the mouse business in just a minute, and that's gonna take a while. But as for the monitor, it's 240Hz, glorious, really like it, really smooth. It's, along with the 27-inch version, the 2740, these are the two best monitors that I've had for FPS gaming, and even just the best monitors I've had overall. Build quality, functions, image quality, smoothness, everything. And this is, I'm saying this despite trying all of these others. I really only had bad experiences with other monitors, like I could go on and on and on, but Acer, shitty OSD, shitty build quality. Alienware, they were pretty good. The build quality was awesome on those monitors. But with the OSD there were problems. First off, this, which ends in H, is the G-Sync version. This, which ends in HF, is the FreeSync version. This felt more responsive. This had punchier colors. This felt less responsive, get it, the more expensive, more premium one. The problem I had with these two, with both I had problems. The less responsive feel and more washed out colors were the problem on this monitor, and the lack of a sharpness setting also was the problem on this monitor. This one had a sharpness setting, but a lot of the samples had glitches, like black and white dots, like when you don't have a signal on an old TV appearing randomly here in big chunks. I had 2 or 3 samples of this monitor, and 2 of those had it occasionally. I think I had 3 samples. The third one didn't have it. And the other problem was that this had a proper black equalizer setting, although it only had like 3 steps, But this one, if you turn on black equalizer on this one or their equivalent dark stabilizer, I don't know what they called it, it's basically a ripoff of black equalizer. When you turn that on, it also added an over sharpening filter, like if you were using Nvidia's, what is that thing that people use instead of Sweet FX, Nvidia Freestyle. So if you turn Nvidia Freestyle's sharpness setting all the way up, it created a really unnatural kind of effect, and whenever you would have liked to just turn on black equalizer's equivalent on the FreeSync Alienware monitor, it would also add that over sharpening effect. But enough with the monitors and stuff. Great monitor. Let's move on to the mice. Most of the time I'm using the G Pro wireless. I bought it the moment I could buy it in Slovakia. Or Slovakia, as Sios likes to pronounce the name of this country. Great mouse. Shape is a bit different than the FK1, which is just here for like fucking around testing purposes. By the way, this is a modded FK1. I put Japanese armorants in there and sanded this section of the mouse. I took apart the mouse, and the inner part of this section has been sandpapered by me to make it more thin, so that clicks would be easier to... the buttons would be easier to actuate, and I succeeded with the Japanese armorants and this sanding. They are a lot more easy to press than they are by default. And I would take this version over the default FK1 any day. The scroll wheel is really shitty, I don't have to tell you that. Everybody hates the FK scroll wheel. I actually really liked the 24-step older EC scroll wheel, that I really liked, but this 16-step Zowie FK scroll wheel, it's a piece of garbage. It's slow, it's loud, it's garbage. But the shape is great, even though I feel like it is too long now that I've gotten used to this shorter G Pro wireless. But the sides, you could argue that the sides are better. You get more grip on the sides because they are curved more, as opposed to the G Pro wireless, which has basically flat sides with a little bit of flip below the buttons. But I'm not gonna dwell on the mice for too long, because I would make this video a lot longer than it needs to be. It's already going to be a lot longer than it needs to be. And I also have these. The G403 wireless, which is also modded to make it 90 grams. And this also modded, well softly modded G305, which has a smaller lithium battery in there to make it how many grams? 82 grams. Yeah. I can play different kind of well with each mouse, but a wired mouse like this is only here to fuck around. I can't stand playing with wires anymore. So I only really seriously use this one and that one. I occasionally use this. I can do well with this mouse as well, but the buttons are a little bit too high for my liking. I like them more when they sit lower, like on this mouse. I can grab this. Well, the thing is, there is no clear-cut winner for me between these two. I can aim with this more confidently, but it's a bit too wide for me. If this would be a little bit narrower, like 2-3 millimeters, it would probably be perfect for me. But alas, it isn't. So I can aim better occasionally with this one, but I feel less confident with it because I would need this larger back, larger and different shaped back to feel more comfortable while using this mouse. In fact, when we're talking about mouse backs, this one is the one which I feel the most comfortable with. A gradual low hump in the back. This one is not really great for me. This is a big hump in the back and it's not even that gradual. This one is somewhere between the two and it's a lot better than that one, but it's a little bit worse than the FKs, for me at least. So yeah, a perfect mouse would probably be an FK2 wireless. I mean, the higher height of this makes it better than the FK2, and the buttons are much better than on the FK. I mean, everything is better on this than it is on the FK2. The only part where the FK2 is better than the G Pro wireless is that it's more narrow. I would prefer that. And that the hump back here, I'm fine with this being this high in the middle, but the hump back here should be more slanted. And if they do that, or if they just release a smaller version of this, like 2 or 3 millimeters narrower and I don't know, shorter by like also 2 or 3 millimeters, and they would call it the G Pro Wireless 2, like they call the FK2 2 because it's smaller, then I would buy that instantly, because this is just a little bit too wide for me. And that's why it isn't a definite winner over this one, although I can aim more confidently with that mouse. For me to seriously consider using any mouse anymore, it needs to be wireless. I hate wires, and now I have options, so I'm not gonna go back to wired mice because I hate wires so much. It was even hard for me to justify using this headphone because it has a wire, but it's just so much better than the previous headphone I had, which was the G533, which Shroud also used. This one is just so much better sound quality wise than that one that I gave up the freedom of wireless in terms of headphones, but I can't do the same with mice. So let's move on. I finally covered this section. Let's move on to this section with which I spent the most time with my last setup tour video. Let me get some more light here. Yeah. So the PC itself. Before I show you the PC itself, I'll show you this glorious painting which my girlfriend made me. If anybody can guess the game, I'll help you with that. It's not a book or it's not a novel, it's not anything. It's a game from which this site is from. If anybody can guess it in the comment section, you'll receive a tiny little heart from me. I'll love your comment. This painting is just so beautiful, and it was made just for me. And also this one. Yeah. This is me, and this is my girlfriend, and I hope you can appreciate art a little bit, because I do appreciate art, and this is great. But anyway, moving on to the more nerdy stuff, I still rock this cooler. I still rock the pure rock on my CPU. But the CPU under it is different than it was in my last setup tour video. If I recall correctly, I just installed a 6600K in my PC in that video and just bought a new motherboard for it and DDR4 RAM. Well, I'm using the same DDR4, which I bought for 60 freaking euros. I bought a 16 gigabyte DDR4 memory kit for 60 euros, and I'm so proud of that. It was actually below 60, like 50 something euros. And after that, for like 2 or 3 years, you could only buy those for like 150 euros. Like 16 gigabytes of DDR4. But moving on from that, the motherboard is a Z370 Great Gaming, as you can read there, from MSI. Which I bought to go alongside with a 8700K, which I also bought for a good price, 300 euros, 305 or something like that euros, and it has gotten more expensive ever since then. So my timing was correct with the RAM and the CPU. For comparison's sake, this is just leaps and bounds better than my i5 was. The i5 was only 4 threads and 4 actual cores, and when I started playing BF1, I really felt that it's not enough anymore. And that's when I made the jump to a 6700, which I had to barely pay for. I mean, I sold my 6600K for 180 euros, and then I bought an i7 6700 for 200 euros. So I spent 20 more euros, and I got a lot more performance. That hyper-threading, I was really skeptical before getting an i7 about hyper-threading, but after I got it, I knew that it's not bogus. It's really worth it to have a 4-core 8-thread CPU instead of a 4-core 4-thread CPU. That was a big jump in terms of smoothness and performance in games, and even more so in Vegas when rendering videos using the CPU only. So yeah. And after that I upgraded to the 8700K, from which upgrading I didn't see that much of a performance jump, but yeah, it's more powerful. 6 cores, 12 threads, and I've thought about upgrading to a 9900K because, yeah, even more FPS, but honestly, I don't need it. I get 150 plus FPS in Battlefield 1, and in the around 500 FPS plus in CSGO at 1080p, so I don't really need it. By the way, the whole mantra with my PC stayed the same. I don't care about looks, I only care about silence and performance. And, well, the value aspect, the value proposition has gone down because I now have a more expensive CPU, which is not a really big or worthwhile upgrade over my 200 euro i7 6700, but I still got it. So yeah, the value is not that great anymore of my PC. Price to performance is not that great anymore. It's just more like performance with less value. And the same also rings true for this 980 Ti, which I have sitting here, which I want to talk about a little bit. And graphics card coolers I want to talk about a little bit in general. And what I have to tell you about them is, first off, let's talk generally about, I'm gonna cover this one and storage also, but generally, if you want a silent PC, you can barely hear this even when I'm gaming, you must go with air cooling. If you get any kind of water cooling, you'll need a pump which circulates the water, and that creates noise, and that noise is like 90% of the time, even if it's more quiet than your fan spinning, it will be more annoying because pumps working and moving around are just may give out a sound that is a lot more intrusive and annoying than a good fan just spinning silently, and the only thing you can hear is just airflow, a slight whoosh. And that's the case with this Be Quiet Silent Wings 2, by the way. So, yeah, if you want a silent PC, you must have first air cooling, second as much airflow in your case, which is not a problem here because I have permanently removed the side panel, as much airflow as possible, and good fans like this one, and the ones which are on the graphics card, which are also spinning, as you can see, even though I'm idling on the desktop. And this graphics card and all new modern graphics cards have a function where they disable the fan below 60%, below 60 degrees Celsius. So the fans only spin up on modern graphics cards most of the time when the core temperature exceeds 60 degrees Celsius, which is stupid. If you want a silent PC, you should download MSI Afterburner or some other software, but I recommend that because it's the most compatible. And it has the least amount of annoying bugs, and you can find and it's the most easy to find solutions for if you have bugs, because it's the most commonly and widely used software for this, for graphics card tuning. You should download MSI Afterburner and set a default fan speed which will be active when you're below 60 Celsius. And that will, which should be a really low RPM fan speed. Generally speaking, if you run a decent fan below 650 and 600 RPM, you won't be able to hear it from like 30 centimeters away. And that's the case with these MSI fans and this fan also. By the way, my PC only has these three fans, like two here, one here, spinning. The last fan that would be spinning is the PSU's fan, but that doesn't spin up until you reach 400 watts of power consumption. And that's all I wanted to say really about the PSU. It's you can see its name here, and the main point with it is that the huge 135mm fan, which would be quiet even if it would be spinning, doesn't spin up. Like, it doesn't. Even though I have a 980 Ti and an 8700K, it doesn't spin up. It never spins up, so my power draw never exceeds 400 watts, basically. Which means the only source of sound in this PC are these three fans. And getting back to the graphics card fans, you want to set those at a low RPM, which will make them pretty much inaudible, instead of leaving the graphics card on default fan settings, fan profile, which would make it so that they don't spin up as long as the card doesn't reach 60 Celsius. Because if you leave them like that, as soon as you do something productive, like, I don't know, play even a flash game or open up Sony Vegas or open up a light game like Rocket League or Counter-Strike, it's gonna be annoying. Your graphics card is gonna be annoying because it will spin up to cool itself down. It will spin really hardly for a short period of time, and when it has cooled itself down below 60 degrees, it will turn off again. Then it will spin up again as it receives even a moderate amount of load from any light game, and then it will stop spinning again, and this will be annoying. And the way to avoid that is to have a constant low RPM which keeps temperatures in check, like around 30 to 40 degrees Celsius, and if you have a lower power card like a 1060 for example, or 1070 even, your temperatures will be even lower with this same MSI cooler if you got the MSI card, which by the way I'll get onto that in a minute. I only recommend these cards if you want a silent PC. So it's a lot better option to have a low RPM constantly than to have a default fan profile where your fans turn off and then on again whenever you reach a certain degree, because if you reach 60 degrees Celsius your fans will have to spin really hard to get the temperature below 60 again, and it will the thermal conditions will be worse with your graphics card if you leave it on the default profile. So moving on to graphics card coolers. I tried all the ones which people regard as silent. I wanted silent, so I tried the EVGA coolers. Nope. Tried the Asus coolers, the Strix ones. Nope. This one is by far the most silent. Partly because it has big fans. The bigger the fan, the quieter the cooler will be. Because if you have a bigger fan, you need a lower RPM to maintain the same cooling potential as you would with a smaller fan. And that's one of the reasons, and the second reason is because it has a really nice heat pipe and heat sink design, which dissipates heat really efficiently. And the third reason is that the motors probably in those fans are really quiet, the bearings and everything. So yeah, Asus EVGA, nope. Like the superclocked, I had a superclocked 1070, I had Asus Strix 970, and both of those were a lot more audible at any kind of RPM than this one is. And I also had a 1060 and also had a 970 with this twin frozer cooler. And that quietness also applies to those. Even funnier is that even if you lower the fan speed to like 25%, which is the minimum amount in MSI Afterburner with the Asus Strix 970, then you'll have a lot higher, like around 800 RPM fan speed as you would compared to this one, which goes down to, I don't know, like 500 something RPM when you lower the fan speed all the way down. So you can't even get the Asus to the same low RPM as you can with this, and even if you set the same exact RPM, like comparing 800 RPM on the Asus Strix card to 800 on this one, this is a lot quieter. So, yep. Moving on, I have a 500 gig 850 EVO SSD. I also have the old 1TB Seagate drive, but it is unplugged from power, so I don't hear it. I just use it for archiving stuff, my old videos. I save them on here, my old photos and whatever. And when I'm not using it, I just unplug it because I don't want to hear it. And if I shut up for a moment, you can hear how silent this PC is. And I'm holding the phone like 20 centimeters away from it. A fly is a lot more noisy than my PC is, which is great. Even though I have a 980 Ti, which is a relatively power-hungry graphics card. So now that I pretty much covered all the parts here, the PSU, the motherboard, the RAM. By the way, it's 2666 MHz RAM. It's a what is that? Patriot Viper series memory kit. Is there something I haven't mentioned? Nope, I don't think so. That is also unplugged because it's an old IDE optical drive and I can't connect. I mean, I could connect it with a converter and whatnot, but I don't really care. So yes, speakers covered, amplifier covered, headphones covered, mics covered. I guess all that is left is for me to show you a little bit of my collection. So if I pull out one of my drawers here, you can also see an MX518, a wheel mouse optical, shitty Speedlink mouse, another shitty mouse, the original battery of my G403, some more Japanese Omron switches with also the old Huanos mixed in there from the FK1. By the way, the peeled cables, I wanted to talk about them. It's not by accident that these cables are peeled. By default, basically all mice have insulation. Like on this MX518, you have this aluminium foil wrapped around the cables, and then the really heavy rubber. And by this time, because this is not a new mouse, really stiff rubber. So you can safely remove the insulation and the stiff rubber, and the mouse cable will become tons more flexible and a lot lighter than it is by default. So if you have a wired mouse and the wires are really annoying you, then I recommend you to peel the cable, just like I did with this generic micro USB cable. I peeled it off, and now this is the most flexible cable in this whole house. It only has the necessary cables for a USB connection, and other than that, it's peeled off and it's really flexible, it's not curly or anything. This is what I use when I want to fuck around with my G Pro Wireless or G403 while plugged in. When I want to compare plugged in performance to unplugged performance on my Logitech wireless mice, which can be plugged in. The G305 can't be plugged in, for example. Yeah, I almost forgot to mention that this is not a Zoe made. This is a Hotline Gaming Mouseband G, which is a rip-off, but a really great rip-off of the Zoe made, and it's only $16 on AliExpress. I guess this is also part of my setup, like the contents of my drawer. This is a MX518 that I took apart. This is the soldering equipment I used to mod the FK1 and also the G403. And in these drawers I have some goodies also, lithium batteries for the G305 and other stuff like putty, with which I was planning to mod the G305 to have flatter sides, but I eventually gave up because I realized that by modding it to have flatter sides I am also increasing the mouse's width and weight, and even though I could deal with the weight, I don't want to increase the width of the mouse. And even if I could manage to put this putty that will later solidify onto the mouse in a way that wouldn't drastically increase its width, even then the back of the mouse would be less ideal than the G Pro Wireless's back, so I gave up on modding the G305 that way. And that is pretty much it. That is my setup. The monitor arm I didn't cover. Yeah, I had this monitor on a monitor arm, whatever, so that I would have more space below it. If you've got any questions or requests for another video like Patrick did, feel free to post a comment. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention the fact that I have a big one.